This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
This week, one of the greatest casualties in the political landscape of Cameroon and the Ambazonia revolution was the truth. Many lies were peddled in the frivolous hope of gaining some political mileage. This is Lambert Mbom.
It is worth reiterating to Ambazonians that we are on our own. This is Jude Agua Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
The job of Ambazonians is cut out for us. Our job is to work on the restoration of independence for Ambazonia as if our lives depend on it. Because, guess what? Our lives truly depend on Ambazonia winning international sovereignty. Manjong Jude Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
This is the first election boycotted by election observers from Western democracies, including from the National Democratic Institute, from the European Union, even from France.
Looking the other way in the face of genocide is singing the requiem mass of Pan-Africanism. And Africanism cannot be built on the foundation of domestic colonization of Ambazonia.
Not all Amba boys have patriotism at heart. Join me for a review of this week's Kings and Queens of Foolish. I am Veronique Betimfe.
The only thing the Biya regime is not doing yet, and should frankly consider doing soon, is pack up and get lost. Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
The U.S. Department of State is encouraging and recommending for Elections Cameroon, ELECAM, to diffuse the toxic atmosphere by releasing results polling site by polling site to enhance transparency and citizens' confidence in the outcome. I am Innocent Chia, and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
Welcome again to another edition of Ambazonia Calling. We have a jam-packed show for you. So let me get going immediately, beginning with our editorial. Ambazonian politicians are learning the good things too slowly. As for the bad things, notably outright lies, it would seem that Ambazonian politicians enrolled in the Rapid Results College of Lies. And as editorialist Lambert Mbom now reports, they have done exceedingly well.
Former Soviet Union President Nikita Khrushchev once remarked that politicians are the same all over. They promise to build a bridge even where there is no river. This week, one of the greatest casualties in the political landscape of Cameroon and the Ambazonia revolution was the truth. Many lies were peddled in the frivolous hope of gaining some political mileage. The charade elections that took place in La République witnessed the gang perfect its craft of lies and manipulation as government-hired international observers lied that they were representing the anti-corruption giant Transparency International. This brazen act of impersonation was swiftly debunked as the individuals paraded on Lailai CRTV were denounced as having no affiliation with Transparency International. Then it turned out that the so-called big announcement made by Dr. Sako of the interim government group that he had been invited to the United Nations Fourth Committee on Decolonization to address the Ambazonia question was a pipe dream, given that Sako and Ayim had applied and been approved like 112 others to address the 4th Committee on the Western Sahara Quest for Decolonization. On PolitiFact's Truthometer, this is pants on fire. Simply put, Sako light. Having been caught pants down, surrogates went out, or rather were dispatched like attack dogs to deflect the story. They searched for a scapegoat and found Capo Daniel, the indefatigable activist, demanded his head on the dish, claiming that his investigation into the veracity of the claim had caused Sako and Ayim to be disinvited to the committee. Then the video emerged from the 4th Committee itself, showing that it was actually at the behest of the delegate from La République that Sako and Dr. Ayim had been disinvited. Oh, shemo. And yes, there are a lot of lies going around together with conspiracy theories. Ambazonians, we must shine eye. We must remain vigilant. Nothing saves but the truth. And like the Holy Book says, the truth shall set you free. There is a difference between propaganda and lies, and it is noticeable that too many groups and persons are specializing in lies telling in the name of propaganda. Beware, these lies always come back to haunt and bite. Lambert Mbom, Ambazonia Calling.
I'd like to make an appeal in a special way to the men in the army. Brothers, each one of you is one of us. We are the same people. The farmers and peasants that you kill are your own brothers and sisters. When you hear the words of a man telling you to kill, think instead in the words of God, "Thou shalt not kill." No soldier is obliged to obey an order contrary to the law of God. In his name, and in the name of our tormented people who have suffered so much and whose laments cry out to heaven, I implore you, I beg you, I order you, stop the repression!
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner for the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until we have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. Part of our program today will focus on a review of the presidential selection, not election, which held last week across the border in neighboring Republic of Cameroon. But before we go there, here is Innocentia with the first part of our news wrap-up for the week.
Sources are confirming that as many as 20 unarmed Ambazonian civilians were randomly arrested, shot, killed, and their bodies set ablaze Friday by Biya genocidal forces in Bamesindop, northern zone. Reports of the gruesome killings were emerging even as 176 UN member countries were voting Cameroon with an abysmal human rights record to become a permanent member of the United Nations human rights body. Another 10 or more unarmed civilians were killed Friday by the colonial genocidal forces of President Biya in Messager DONGA-MANTUNG state in Ambazonia. Many of them were also reportedly pulled out randomly from their homes and executed in cold blood. 5 Ambazonian bike riders shot and killed in what appears to be a school area were not freedom fighters as claimed in a viral video shared by Biya's genocidal forces Thursday. Intelligence sources report that it was a group of packed bike riders loading foodstuffs on their bikes. A certain Captain Fred Ocala Romero of the Biya genocidal forces ordered fire, killing 5 of the 7 unarmed men. 2 bikers reportedly escaped. Then guns were then placed on them and Captain Fred Romero Ocala ordered the filming of the scene. The mission to go face the real Amber Boys in the forest got cancelled. Multiple sources are confirming that the colonial forces of La République du Cameroon are evacuating the area around Bafut Airport as they continue losing forces to 7 Qatar Bafut freedom fighters. Sources are attributing the victory to spiritual warfare. In a related development, scores of young men were reportedly pulled out of their homes. Some disappeared, killed, Wednesday and Thursday around the Mile 8 area in Bamenda by La République du Cameroon troops as they were retreating and fleeing from their Bafut airport base. A municipal councilwoman for Balikumba Northern Zone in Ambazonia has confirmed that the only people who voted at the lone polling point in Balikumba were those working at the polling station. Justina Doe was talking with Ambazonia freedom fighters Tuesday, October 9th, in a video that has since gone viral. On the heels of the soaring kidnappings for ransom on Ground Zero in Ambazonia, the ADF General Secretariat has issued a statement distancing the organization and its freedom fighters from any such criminal acts. The statement calls out a certain John Iguayan and Marcellus Atanga for indulging in unethical and unpatriotic practices, alleging that John Iguayan is bribing ADF freedom fighters to switch camps like the CPDM in La République du Cameroon has been purchasing votes. Stay tuned for more news routes from the past week. I am Innocent Chia and you are listening to Ambazonia Calling.
Thank you, Innocent. Don't go anywhere. Please complete our wrap-up for the week.
Transparency International refused any affiliation Tuesday 9th with election observers that La République du Cameroon's propaganda outlet, CRTV, claimed were from the anti-corruption organization. The 3 impostors, headed by certain Salomon Benrose, reportedly have Israeli ties with the Israel team lead for the Bees, Cameroon's special forces that have been exacting acts of genocide in Ambazonia. The U.S. Department of State is encouraging and recommending for elections Cameroon, LEBIALEM, and the Constitutional Council of neighboring La République du Cameroon to diffuse the toxic atmosphere post-presidential election by releasing results polling site by polling site to enhance transparency and citizens' confidence in the outcome. Germany's federal parliament, the Bundestag, has been reminded yet again by Dr. Christoph Hoffmann of the FDP party that Germany and the rest of the international community owe an moral and historic obligation in the settlement of the conflict between Ambazonia and La République du Cameroon. He was speaking Thursday, October 11th, during a 45-minute debate about the ongoing conflict in Cameroon. The Financial Times in London has joined the fray of heavyweight media outlets drawing light to the magnitude of the conflict between Ambazonia and La République du Cameroon. In a piece published on October 11th, the Financial Times conclude that France should take a lead in galvanizing European and African countries to pressurize whatever incoming government into initiating dialogue, especially with Cameroon's English speakers, who, quote, have genuine grievances that need urgently to be addressed, ideally in a wide-ranging national debate, end quote. A breastfeeding Ambazonian mother and her 2 kids, a 3-year-old son and a 2-day-old daughter, are facing forced removal from a church shelter in the city of Waukegan in Illinois. Judith Sabotamo reportedly arrived from Cameroon 2 months ago, fleeing from the genocidal violence that the government of 85-year-old President Paul Biya, currently battling for another 7-year term in office, unleashed on the English-speaking minority that declared the restoration of independence on October 1st, 2017. Judith, who lost touch with her husband and her 9-year-old twin sons as they separated to multiply their chances of survival, has no family in the Chicagoland area. Last evening, Saturday, a press conference concluded a 5-hour prayer vigil in front of the church where Judith is living. Known for her strong connections to immigration and custom causes nationally, Pastor Julie Contreras of Our Lady of Supaya sanctuary in Waukegan, spoke not only loudly on the unfolding genocide in Ambazonia, but prayed the city to reconsider its position on sanctuary cities. A sanctuary city refers to municipal jurisdictions, typically in North America and Western Europe, that limit their cooperation with the national government's effort to enforce immigration law. Finally, Ambazonian prominent online activist Capo Daniel has bowed out temporarily from the role he has graciously played in the fight for the restoration of Ambazonia. In a video shared on his online platforms Friday, Capo attributed the decision to threats to his life by IG group surrogates of Samuel Sako, whose bold-faced lie that the IG had been invited to speak at the UN Decolonization Committee was questioned by Capo Daniel. An audio from the committee has eventually vindicated Capo Daniel, although not before their diplomatic guru, Dr. Martin Ayim, labeled Capo Daniel an illiterate. This is the same Dr. Ayim who falsely claimed that he had accreditation from the late Dr. Kevin Gumne, then chairman of SCAPO. Never mind that the letter he was carrying around did not bear the signature of Dr. Ngomne. He also claimed in his shameful baby rant that he had evidence to show that Capo was responsible for the shame and ineptitude of the IG. No such evidence is ever going to come forth, not from him or from Samuel Sako, who has remarkably not said a word about grave charges including 419 Femania or conmanism labeled against him by activist Digimas, who has maintained his readiness to answer the charges in any US or European court of law. Country delegates even volunteered to hire a lawyer to defend Sako, but he turned down the offer. Your guess as to why is as good as mine. Innocent Chia for Ambazonia Calling.
Ambazonia Calling. You are in the heart of the news shrine. Call us the Kalakuta Republic of commentary, opinion, and editorials. Neighboring Republic of Cameroon held a presidential ballot last Sunday, as we heard in the news. Less than 24 hours after the polls closed, Professor Maurice Kamto declared himself the winner of the ballot, setting off a frenzy of activities, notably on the security front. That country's constitutional court is expected to proclaim the winner in no more than 15 days after the vote, meaning in another 8 days at a maximum. Here is Barrister Manjong Jutambe bringing us our own dose of speculation on what may happen going forward.
There are two or maybe three possibilities that one may envisage following last Sunday's elections in La République du Cameroon. The first is that Mr. Biya is proclaimed the winner, as was always expected. If that should happen, the other possibility is that citizens of La République du Cameroon become angry, disillusioned, and they riot. They would have to do this on their own because they no longer can count on les gens de Bamenda who are used to leading the protests. They are now citizens of Ambazonia and completely unconcerned by elections in La République du Cameroon. It is also not impossible to think that citizens of La République du Cameroon will fold up under their beds in fear, as always, doing nothing. The second scenario is one some Cameroonians are used to as well. After declaring victory, Mr. Kamto, as he promised, continues in stubborn defiance of Mr. Biya's government orders to proclaim his perceived victory, backed by the hidden hands of his new master, France. He holds up his own until Mr. Biya is pushed out of to the palace like Mr. Laurent Gbagbo was in Côte d'Ivoire. Alternatively, Mr. Biya's Singang Mafia may feel very threatened by the Bamlikis and insist on maintaining their power grab. Mr. Kamto is either arrested and jailed under trumped-up charges, or a fake coup d'etat is staged, forcing Mr. Biya out while ensuring power remains with his Beti Bulu brothers, who stand a better chance of guaranteeing his security. Not too impossible is the other probability. As in Nigeria, the winner gets arrested, thrown in jail, and God forbid, killed in jail as Nigeria did with Mr. Moshood Abiola. Anyone, including any Ambazonians who might have been tempted to dance and celebrate the end of the Biya regime or the crowning of Mr. Maurice Kamto, should quit counting their chickens before they are hatched. What may Ambazonians honestly expect from a President Kamto? It is difficult to foretell what any leader in La République du Cameroon would do, given that the territory is just an overseas colonial province of France. Many jubilated in 1982 when Mr. Paul Biya took over from Mr. Amadou Ahidjo. Those who celebrated then are the same ones crying today. The bitter truth, though, for Ambazonians is that they can fear Mr. Kamto now or cry later. Mr. Kamto is one of the chief architects of the 1996 Constitution and Electoral Code in Cameroon. The code can help collapse the Biya regime or help him steal another election. Mr. Kamto has been part and parcel of the Biya regime, just as Mr. Biya was part and parcel of the Ahidjo regime, even if, to Mr. Kamto's credit, he had resigned from it. There is more to fear. Mr. Kamto, the lawyer, fought Ambazonia at the African Union Court in Banjul, the Gambia, and lost. That loss may have taught Mr. Kamto how legally justified separation by Ambazonia is. Or it might have taught him that there's only one way, military force, to force Ambazonia to stay on. His opposition to so-called secession is a frightening pointer of what he believes. It is, in effect, the same credo as Mr. Biya. With that in mind, the job of Ambazonians is cut out for us. Our job is to work on the restoration of independence for Ambazonia as if our lives depend on it. Because, guess what? Our lives truly depend on Ambazonia winning international sovereignty. Manjong Jude Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
Papa, you don't walk, today you don't come, what's so good as so, Papa? Après le travail, c'est la retraite. Prends ta retraite. Go, papi, tu es fatigué. Go, ben, tu es fatigué. Go, papi, tu es fatigué. Go, ben, tu es fatigué.
How do you organize an election when you are fighting two wars? It is a question I asked Tanyi Jude Agwa Ozugen, and here is his analysis.
Only the criminal regime of Biya will claim to have organized a free and fair election. Any normal country, and Cameroon is far from one, would have postponed elections so long as it was fighting two wars, one against Boko Haram in the three northern regions and the second against Ambazonia. From Andek in Momo State to Matok in Meme State, Ambazonian freedom fighters fought back, refusing to be intimidated. Fully aware of that reality, the regime's main man, Atanganji, did not even make an effort to cover up. From the very beginning, the minister hired his own brother based in Houston, Texas, to cook up an opinion poll showing Mr. Biya as the winner. They hired lobbying, public relations, and legal firms to misrepresent the charade. And to top it all up, Atanganji invented election observers supposedly from Transparency International.
And the day after the vote, a group of international observers working for Transparency International have described the conduct of the October 7 presidential election as credible, fair, and sincere.
Transparency International shamed them publicly, and the veil failed. The fake observers were in Cameroon to cover up an election that unfolded under bullets.
The shooting continues. Cameroonian military shooting.
Thanks to video from CRO TV, the world saw footage and heard commentary of the ruling party shooting their way to one of the few campaign rallies.
To deter anyone, any gunman who may want to disturb the free movement of this convoy, to bang them.
In Boya, capital of Ambazonia, citizens woke up on so-called election day to massacres.
Yes, this is Donna is gone. Donna's nowhere.
In the middle of the election day, gunfire rang out in neighborhoods like Bomaka.
That's the sound of gun. You are in Baghdad. This is Boya Bumaka.
From so-called campaign events, head to the rings of bullets in the air, to voting to the music of machine gun fire, this is what the colonialists would like to pass for free and fair election under the best possible conditions.
Oh God.
Cursed be the world if it is fooled once more by this devilish regime. This is Jude Agua Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. Welcome, Professor Emmanuel Tata-Mentan.
Ntumfoyn, thanks a bunch, and let us visit the strong messages sent by the surging Ambazonian restoration forces to the demons of its sovereignty at domestic and international levels, especially following their spectacular blockade of the holding of foreign elections on their homeland.
The lockdown preventing elections in Ambazonia is a strong message to the colonialists, but also a strong message to the world. What message precisely do you think was sent to the United Nations?
The strong message to the United Nonsense, Ntumfoyn, is very clear. It is that its devious independence by joining was doomed to fail, and it has failed woefully to resurrect no more, and should never be experimented on any people on earth.
Is there a more precise message to those who at the United Nations pretend every day of working to prevent genocide?
To the genocide Tsar Adama Dieng, the message is that blaming the Ambazonian victim for genocide is myopic and a disaster magnified by postponement.
What message do you think has been sent to the African Union Commission?
Ntumfoyn, the message to Dr. Musa Faki Mohammed of the African Uselessness Commission is that looking the other way in the face of genocide is singing the requiem mass of Pan-Africanism. It is indeed the stillbirth of silencing the guns vision of the Commission initiated in 2013. Pan-Africanism cannot be built on the foundation of domestic colonization of Ambazonia.
And what message do you think has been sent to next-door colonial Republic of Cameroon?
The strong message to the Satanic Republic of Cameroon Ntumfoyn is that Ambazonian lives matter. They have no duplicates. Those who have been contributing millions of francs for buying guns and ammunition for murdering Ambazonians should know that they will pay for their domestic support to genocide on Ambaland.
Surely there must be a specific message for Paul Biya.
Ntumfoyn, the strong message to Lucifer Paul Biya is unmistakable. Ambazonians will be liberated from its French-engineered colonization and colonialism or die fighting. He should remind himself that the well-packaged diapers made especially for him are still waiting for him in Biya.
And do you care to indicate what message there is here for Professor Maurice Kamto, the man who has projected himself the winner of last Sunday's ballot?
Ntumfoyn, Professor Maurice Kamto is no stranger to the war against Ambazonians. He and Barrister Keremuna fought against the Ambazonian self-determination case at the African Court in Banjul, Gambia, but lost. Maurice Kamto was awarded with a ministerial appointment because of his skewed arguments at the International Court of Justice. The decision was that Nigeria's boundary at independence did not include the Bakassi Peninsula. They twisted the decision to mean that Bakassi belonged to the Satanic Republic of Cameroon, whereas its frozen boundary at independence had no maritime border with Nigeria. Let Kamto know that he cannot fool Ambazonians. He reads like an old book.
Is there a message for Ambazonians who are still flirting with the colonial Republic of Cameroon?
Ntumfoyn, our African wisdom instructs us that no parent beats a child and pushes his child outside. Hence, Ambazonian doors are open to its erring children in the Satanic Republic of Cameroon.
What message do you have for Ambazonian self-defense forces?
Ntumfoyn, the message to the Ambazonia Restoration Forces is very simple. Never call retreat. Embark on mopping up operations immediately. Though the devil is on the ropes, it can spring back. Who knows?
Thank you very much, Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta, and have a very productive week.
Ntumfoyn, thanks for having me.
You have plenty of show yet to come, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Here for your enjoyment is an excerpt of music released this week to honor the sacrifice of Siseko Ayuk Tabe and all of Ambazonia's prisoners of conscience and heroes killed in this revolution. The singers are Mbongwi Angwi Tha and Dabne Yerim.
Restoration train is going to restoration train. Restoration train is going restoration train. Restoration train is sailing restoration train on the restoration journey of our liberty. So get on now on the train, everybody. Get on now on the train. Mothers, fathers, get on now on the train. Children, get on now on the train. Sister, brothers, get on now on the train. Husbands, wives too, get on now on.
Colonial Cameroon is well known for organizing a selection process for its president, not an election. Depending on how threatened incumbent Biya has felt, he has cheated without shame. But even in a country whose ruling party is known for rigging and vote buying, the election of last Sunday tops the Chad on many aspects, as Barrister C. Ajimvoambe now reports.
After the election, where them do, we still they wait for the change.
Trying to compare the last election in the Republic of Cameroon with previous ones, as bad as they have all been, would be like comparing apples and oranges. At least two things make the last election stand out in a category of its own. First, this is the first election boycotted by election observers from Western democracies, including from the National Democratic Institute, from the European Union, even from France. There were no election observers from the United States, except, of course, for the fake ones, caught red-handed pretending to be from Transparency International. The United States had made it clear, long before the election, that it had no intention whatsoever of participating in it. The US went further in outlining that Biya's unwillingness to reform the electoral code dimmed any prospects of the holding of a free and fair election. The second major difference with other elections was not only the absence of the United Nations, but also its inability to confirm that the election would go well, given the horrible conditions on the ground. A very telling detail as to what concerned the UN most was the fact that the ballot was being organized at a time when the main official speaking on behalf of the UN was expressing deep concern about preventing genocidal violence. Thirdly, voter registration betrayed the lack of seriousness on the part of colonial Cameroon. The total number of voters for every single one of the 10 regions was a rounded number ending with the digits 000, a sign that the numbers were simply cooked up. In addition, the regime could not get the arithmetic of adding up the 10 regions right. As for the number of registered voters in Ambazonia, the overall number of registered voters was barely higher than the 360,000 Ambazonians who voted in the February 1961 UN-supervised plebiscite. In other words, and providing further proof of how badly Ambazonians have been disenfranchised, their numbers on the electoral roll rose 40% from 1961, whereas the numbers of citizens of La République du Cameroun grew fivefold compared to 1960. This is C. Ajimbo Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
So, restoration train is Ambazonian train. Whoa. Restoration, restoration train. Whoa. Restoration, restoration train. Oh, restoration, restoration, restoration train is going to the borders. Ntumfoyn, restoration train is going straight to Kumba. Ntumfoyn, restoration train is going on to Bali. Ntumfoyn, restoration train is going to Victoria. And to whom? Restoration train is going to Muyuka.
We are not done with the cheating of colonial Cameroon's ruling CPDM party. We asked Lambenbaum to dig a little deeper and to share with our listeners the many ways in which the outgoing CPDM so often is almost inevitably also the incoming CPDM.
It is an open secret. Cameroon's ruling CPDM has never ever won an election. They count on broad daylight rigging and electoral hold-ups. Any Cameroonian who still doubted this fact was served fresh evidence of the CPDM vote thieving and vote buying and outright fraud during last Sunday's ballot. Supporters of incumbent Biya were not ashamed to claim that Biya had scored a little higher than Stalin. Many polling stations across Biya's ancestral south region turned up election tally sheets showing the scandalous vote count of 100% of the vote in favor of Biya. Even in theft of elections, Aijo had the decency of putting his landslide victories at 99.99%. The colonial regime is now claiming that turnout was high in Ambazonia, including in towns like BOYO, where foreign news networks documented Ambazonians leaving town in droves ahead of the ballot.
Tens of thousands of Cameroon's English-speaking minority are packing their bags and fleeing their homes before Sunday's presidential election.
The town so badly dried out of its inhabitants that the regime found itself having to hire and bus in crowds in long lines of buses to participate in their rallies, even as natives shamed the convoys from their homes. So unashamed has the regime become that its supporters and collaborators did not hesitate to shut out opposition representatives from embassies around the world.
No to injustice. We the people of Ambazonia say no to unity. We are going to free our country. We are going to free our country because look, Ambazonia is a free country. Nobody is going to shut me up. Nobody is going to shut my mouth. I am the general, and I want to tell all Ambazonians that we are together. Ambazonia, we are together. Ambazonia must be free.
One example was Geneva, Switzerland, when Nyat Njifenji voted.
Si par aventure, M. Paul Biya se maintient au pouvoir, nous allons rendre le Cameroun ingouvernable. Parole du commissaire de police.
The regime employed the usual rigging tricks, including the issuance of multiple voter cards. Video turned up on the internet showing individuals just going through the electoral roll and thumbprinting against absentee voters to make believe that they had voted for Mr. Biya. Then, as in 1992, the regime sent forces of insecurity to storm the party headquarters of Professor Kamto, where they could be seen on video stealing computers and any proof that Mr. Biya indeed lost the ballot. They did not hesitate to storm the private residence of an opposition member of parliament in Douala in a desperate attempt to keep an eye on Professor Kamto and closest aides. The only thing the Biya regime is not doing yet, and should frankly consider doing soon, is pack up and get lost. Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week. Here is Veronique Ntumfoyn with a rundown of the kings and queens of foolish for this week.
The third place finisher for the crown of shame this week is a whole crowd of surrogates for the IG. They spend countless hours on social media defending lies or lavishing insults on comrades who dare to defend the truth. This week, these loudmouths turned on, among others, comrades Cho Ayaba and Capo Daniel. Their blackmail this week, as during previous weeks, consisted of standing by the big fat lie told by the IG that Ambazonia was invited to address the UN Food Committee on Decolonization. That announcement by the IG was a lie, period, end of story. For sheepishly standing by that lie and trying so desperately to rubbish the good name of comrades like Cho Ayaba, these surrogates are the third place finishers for the Nyamfuka of the week. Another crowd is in the position of runners-up this week. They have become very loud since the presidential selection in next-door Cameroon. They are of Bassa, Bamileke, and Ewondo descent. This week, these fellows were the authors of hate-filled audio messages disseminated on social media in which they threaded jabs meant solely to brag about their tribe being better than the other. They took Koba, my tribe is better than yours insults to a new level this week. A certain GC claiming to be Bamileke promised death to Yaoundé natives. A lady of Yaoundé descent returned favor, saying they will take down Bamilekes. And not to be outdone, a male voice of Bassa descent said they will bring out machetes and chop off the heads of Bamilekes. This is the kind of foolishness being used on social media this week to try to determine who won Cameroon's presidential selection. It is proof, if any more was needed, that Cameroon is nothing but a republic of tribes. And even worse, it appears to be on the verge of disintegrating like 2 cubes of sugar in their post-election tea of political hatred. For spewing hate and encouraging ethnic cleansing, the authors of these hate-filled audios are this week's second-place finishers for the Nyamfuka of the week. Finishing in first place and running away with the crown of shame this week is another growing number of do-evil groups. These groups, roaming villages and towns in Ambazonia, claiming to be Amba freedom fighters, yet abusing peace-loving fellow Ambazonians. These groups give true Amba boys a bad name by abducting, wrongly detaining, torturing, threatening, raping, extorting, and, for the very unlucky ones, even killing their victims. This week, these groups continue to target well-to-do Ambazonians, the parents of Ambazonians with children living abroad, from whom huge sums of money are demanded in ransom. One of the groups reportedly killed 2 people in the outskirts of Kumba in the southern zone this week. They abducted, tortured, and extorted money from Mombororo herdsmen in the northern zone. They also abducted several SDF officials. These are shameful crimes, and the perpetrators should stop or be stopped by true Amba boys. For taking peace-loving Ambazonians hostage and collecting ransom from them, going to the extent of killing some, the fake Amba groups are this week's undisputable winners of the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the week. Veronique Ntumfoyn for Ambazonia Calling.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Anyone who wishes to consult the oracle on when Cameroon's tyrant Paul Biya will quit power should not waste his palm wine, the white cock, and the white sheep. No need to pay that. The answer is known. Biya is not going anywhere soon. Here once more is Danyi Jude Agwa Ozugen.
Neighboring Cameroon is unpredictable. It is uncertain for how much longer its 86-year-old leader will be around. Yet he and his supporters could kill anyone to give him another 7-year term. For now, the widely shared view is that Maurice Kamto won. The only trouble believing that is that no one can say for sure that Paul Biya lost the ballot. Even worse, no one can tell if he will ever leave power. If Kamto's brilliant run comes up short, as did the presidential bid of Ntumfoyn in 1992, this moment will be seen as putting the first cracks on Cameroon's imperial presidency. Kamto is seen as having the requisite gravitas to unite a potentially violent and checkered nation. The French will probably live with him, especially if he commits to maintaining Ambazonia in annexation and colonial exploitation. In the darkest hours of the history of the Bamileke, Ambazonians hosted hundreds of thousands of Bamileke fleeing extermination in France's Dirty War, started in 1955 and raging on and off until 1972, when Ernest Owandi was executed in Bafoussam. Tens of thousands were slaughtered, an estimated 61,000 to 76,000 civilians in all, according to recently declassified French government archives. Surely, Ambazonians cannot be blamed for thinking, as many apparently do now, that Kamto, on behalf of his Bamileke brethren, need to return the favor. Frundi laid out the script which Kamto has so far followed in part. As with Frundi, even his best effort will end up at the point of departure, leaving Biya's constitutional court to maintain him on the throne. If Kamto wants to win truly, here is a historical fact he can try to reproduce. When Ferdinand Marcos declared himself the winner of 1986 presidential election in the Philippines, Cory Aquino led a rally of 2 million Filipinos proclaiming victory for herself and the people. The day after Marcos' inauguration, Filipinos participated in a general strike, a boycott of the state media, a massive run on state-controlled banks, a boycott of crony businesses and other non-violent activities. A dissident faction of the military signaled that it favored the opposition in this matter, encouraging the opposition to form a parallel government with Aquino as its head. President Reagan's administration signaled support for the opposition. That evening, U.S. military helicopters transported Marcos and his family to the United States, where they remain in exile. Kamto can cash in on growing international opprobrium of the diaper-wearing and longest-serving dictator. Whatever the case, it is worth reiterating to Ambazonians that we are on our own. This is Jude Agwa Ozugen for Ambazonia Calling.
Oh, Abba, Father, bless us. Oh, Jesus Christus, guide us. Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty. So, restoration train is our freedom train. So, restoration train is Ambazonian train. Oh. Restoration train. Oh.
Citizens of neighboring Republic of Cameroon, even those who did not vote for Professor Maurice Kamto, hope that a time could come when their country too could begin accepting peaceful transfer of power from one leader to the next. Some superlatives came into mind when they and their leaders spoke about how beautiful it would be if Biya could just this moment hand over to Professor Kamto. Here is Barrister C. Ajimvambe.
Exhilaration, pride, hope for a brighter future, empowerment and having a say in the direction of one's destiny, being an integral part of a democratic process, pure joy, victory, determination to throw any and everything behind a newly elected leader to ensure that he has all that he needs to heal and rebuild a broken and demoralized people a plundered and shattered nation. These, and many more, are the sentiments and proclamations of citizens of neighboring La République du Cameroon who overwhelmingly voted for Professor Maurice Kamto. Gratitude, confidence, competence, renewed faith in democratic processes, renewed faith in the trust and support of the people of La République du Cameroon, humility in the knowledge that power indeed belongs to the people, determination to serve selflessly, above all, legitimacy. These are the sentiments of Professor Maurice Kamto, overwhelmingly voted by citizens of La République du Cameroon. Can Ambazonians say the same of themselves and the present leadership of Ambazonia? Some will be quick to defensively retort, "We cannot, we should not compare apples and oranges. We are in a revolution, and revolutionary leaders are not elected. An election would be unrealistic and invalid given that Ambazonian refugees, the internally displaced, or even the incarcerated would not be able to participate in any such election." Yes, indeed. Refugees, IDPs, others in the homeland most probably wouldn't be able to participate. Is it inconceivable that Ambazonians who are unable to participate in a broad-based, transparent electoral process put their trust in those who can participate? Is it inconceivable that as citizens of La République du Cameroon present a democratically elected leadership to the world, Ambazonians do same and present their democratically elected interim leadership despite the odds? Is it inconceivable that Ambazonians can also overwhelmingly experience priceless feelings of exhilaration, pride, hope for a brighter future, empowerment at having a say in the direction of one's destiny, being an integral part of a democratic process, pure joy, victory, and determination to throw any and everything behind a democratically elected leadership, ensuring that it has all that it needs to take us to BOYO? Are all these things really inconceivable? Or would we rather just sit around and complain every day that the struggle for the liberation of Ambazonia is struggling, that the IG, ARC, and other frontline groups are failing, that there is not enough focus and support for Ground Zero and our people are dying as a result? Is it inconceivable that Ambazonians can once again rise up as one people and remedy the deficiencies in leadership that are indeed causing the struggle for the liberation of Ambazonia to struggle? Is it really inconceivable? Or would we rather just be like the craftsman who has all the tools, skills, and resources at his disposal, but chooses to wallow in poverty for eternity? Is it really that inconceivable? This is C. Ajimbo Ambi for Ambazonia Calling.
Blessed be the Lord for his unfailing love. The snare is broken and we have escaped. Our help is in the name of the Lord. Blessed be the Lord.
Ground Zero continues to amaze. We bring back Innocent Chia to pay them tribute. Here's his report.
On the heels of the excellent work done to celebrate October 1st, Ground Zero once more did Ambazonia proud by preventing the holding of elections by a foreign colonial power in our homeland. The promoters of the one and indivisible Cameroon found out, to their chagrin, that they were up against the one and indivisible Ambazonia.
As far as I know, Northwesterners and Southwesterners are one and indivisible, and they are fighting to get back their Southern Cameroon.
Looking back, it is amazing that such success was possible given how hard it had proven for frontline leaders in the diaspora and self-defense groups on the home front to agree an exact date for the 24/7 lockdown of the territory. Happily, once September 25th was agreed as the start of the lockdown, freedom fighters on Ground Zero united, risking everything, including their lives, to pull it off.
Camp on night, we go fight no?
Yes.
Data go fight no?
Yes.
We know the fear no?
Yes, General.
No?
Yes, General.
Phobia they cry, Turuma they holla, my boys with the killers small.
The staged attacks were needed, including one on the office of the divisional officer for Babesi in the northern zone to prevent electoral material from being distributed. Not happy with just supporting those on the homeland, some Ambazonian supporters, like the Francophone lady based in Paris who has promoted herself to the rank of Ambazonian general, confronted Francophones at noisy rallies supporting the fake election to shout her opposition to the election and pledge her strong support to Ambazonia.
No to injustice. We the people of Ambazonia say no to unity. We are going to free our country. We are going to free our country because look, Ambazonia is a free country.
At the close of election day, activists like Alex Mbianda and Prince Harriet Fomuki sang the well-deserved praise of those on Ground Zero.
Thank you so much, Ground Zero, for all what we do. Now, Princess Harriet, this.
Nous sommes ici sous la protection de l'armée. La participation est d'environ 0,5%. Vous pouvez vous-même voir les urnes. Les bulletins qui s'y trouvent appartiennent à ceux qui sont assis ici.
All in all, Ambazonians proved that non-violent resistance and refusal to grant consent to the colonizer are formidable weapons. Innocent Chair, Ambazonia Calling.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, what is this I am hearing? Did I hear right? Are people really jubilating that Professor Maurice Kamto could have beaten you in your own election? What have citizens of Cameroon not learned from Ni John Frundi passing that same exam in flying colors in 1992, only to fail it before the Constitutional Court? After decades in power, you are right, Joshua, about having both the yam and the knife. Do they think that you are Robert Mugabe, who resigns when the military tanks roll into the streets of the capital? You are no spring chicken. You have got home court advantage, and you are determined to keep it. Who misled these fellows into thinking that you were about to bow out? One thing is to win. The other thing is to take possession of the presidential palace. I can hear you saying the same thing you said in 1992. J'y suis. J'y reste. This is when, with the use of vote rigging backed by the military might, you prove not only to your wretched citizens who believe in democracy at their peril, but also to the world what you call ne reste pas au pouvoir qui veut, mais qui peut. It is not just because you are too old to be in power. It is not because you need hefty pull-ups to contain those leaking pipes of yours. It is not just because you could not muster the energy to be at every campaign rally that it means you are about to check out. And in any case, you are not about to cede power to one of those ministers whom, as Jacques Famendongo rightly says, they're the work of your creation. You have made them male and female ministers in your own image and likeness. Speaking of someone made in your image, I know someone who even passes around for your only begotten slave. He even bears one of your names. That is, if your names are indeed your names. Because Jean-Remy Ngono explained to the world this week that apparently your father saw right when he gave you the same name as some hardened criminal in the village back then in Vomuka. But if I could stay on topic for one moment, the man in your cabinet of Ali Baba and 40 thieves, the one person who indeed is made in your image and likeness is Paul Atanganji. He's like you in all things, including the sin which Nigerians call election thievery. You did well to make him your minister in charge of stealing elections. I know you are very disappointed with him. Who would not be? When Marafa Aminu Yahya used to steal elections for you, no one heard a pin drop. Now this hooligan you recruited from New Bell prison has to go out of his way to threaten citizens on national TV with feeding their blood to your baby-killing regime. With the world watching at prime time on CRTV propaganda, he can swear to the fact that your regime is just one of cannibals, feasting on citizens you massacre around the clock as a sacrifice for staying on in power ad vitam aeternam. If you are angry with Paul Atanganji, I cannot blame you. How come he did not do his job? I mean, his job description is crystal clear, it is very simple, and it has been there from the very beginning. And he begged you on his knees for the job, right? And he promised, as they do in the mafia, that he will either deliver you victory at the polls or he will be hung from the polls. It was an easy job for a man who had the free hand to recruit even his brother in Houston, Texas, to play the American opinion survey firm. You loaded up the wallets of all those Washington, D.C. public relations, legal, and lobby firms at the generous fee of nearly $300,000 a month, only for Congress to pass all these resolutions without them doing anything. Speaking of people who just come and go and are paid for free, I mean, those observers from Transparency International, they were utterly fake. I mean, how could Atanganji not tell? I mean, you don't have to believe these observers just because they come from the United States and they happen to be white. I mean, a lot of things come from the United States and they are fake. Do you remember that member of your creation, the member of that your Ali Baba cabinet, who furnished you with a refurbished flying coffin and pretended that it was a brand new plane coming from Boeing? Think of it, Joshua. Atanganji and company brought you fake opinion polls, fake election observers. They organize a fake election. What do you think they're going to get? Not a fake president? I mean, of course, you think you are the real deal. Did the hag at the head of those fake election observers just bring her honey to be stung by your bees? That would be an expensive act of cross-fertilization in election thievery in this age. But how for do now, Joshua? This is what happens when you trust things on which your thieving regime depends for its survival to some dunderhead who dropped out of school in Form 2.5. In case you missed the class in which this was taught, the expression, set a thief to catch a thief, really does not mean you will catch the thief. Hiring an ex-convict because he is the most prison smart of the 40 thieves in the Ali Baba gang doesn't guarantee that you will win the election. There is something I do not understand, Joshua. Was part of the slam-dunk election victory Paul Atanganji promised you supposed to include getting Ambazonia to vote for you as well? Are you crazy? The Ambazonians in your circle, I mean the likes of Yang, Musonge, Mukete, Galega, Gogomo, Achiri Achu, and Atanganji, these are slaves without hope of redemption. They can never tell you the truth. I mean, open wide the gates of prison and tell these slaves to walk free and they will tell you, we'd much rather stay behind bars. That is probably why they cannot muster the courage to tell you that time is up, Joshua. But you don't have to listen only to them. The German Bundestag spoke clearly on Friday. The European Union refused even to field observers to come and observe your election. That should speak volumes. The call by the Congress of the United States for your regime to negotiate with Ambazonia tells you the end is very near, Joshua. Satan is right now calling your name. And may the devil never have mercy on your soul. From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer today is Jeff McCoy. Our music is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato Vadzikov himself. From Wilimfo, an Amber music star of blessed memory. From Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.com. And from Prince Ajwa Alem of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at missionstribune.com, at compassfreepress.com, and at africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another date. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the good fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.